Nathan Brooks is a real estate investor who does deals all over the U.S. and internationally. He's done millions of dollars of transactions and will flip 30 to 40 plus houses this year. Nathan Brooks, welcome to Radio for Small Business.
Eugene, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
So 30 to 40 houses flipped in a year. That is huge. How do you even get that deal flow going, man?
Oh, man. Well, it's just putting into practice when you do one or two or three deals and learning how to execute, learning how to make a decision on a property that looks good and being able to then, turn that into a deal that's on time, on budget, and sells,
Gotcha. So what types of real estate investing do you like to invest in?
Well, we do a few different things. We buy and hold, and so we have rental properties that we own ourselves. We have several different joint venture partners that we buy and hold with, and then we also have several joint venture partners that we do fix and flips with as well.
Okay, so I heard you say buy and hold. I heard you say joint venture. What's the difference between the two? Maybe you can tell the listeners what's buy and hold, and then, what does joint venture necessarily mean?
Well, joint venture just by itself doesn't necessarily tell us the deal, but it's just more of the structure, which could be anything in a joint venture. But in this context, it's just somebody that I'm partnering with in a joint venture. So that could be the flip, that could be the buy and hold. And so we go in there and we work out with that partner. And the joint venture just basically spells out the goals, obligations, and it just puts pen to paper in a legal document in agreement what that is.
Gotcha. And buy and hold, I'm assuming that's where you get a property and you keep it and put a tenant in it, or am I wrong?
Exactly. So we have buy and holds that we hold ourselves, then we have buy and holds that we actually rehab and put a tenant in place. And we also own our own management company, and so we will then sell it out to turnkey buyers who just kind of want to, buy the deal, buy the passively producing asset, and so we manage those properties for them as well.
Gotcha. And that's a cool turnkey, especially when you're talking about real estate and other investors being able to buy those assets from you. What types of things are, turnkey investors? What motivates them to buy the deal once you fixed it up versus trying to go out on the street and find their own deal?
Well, that's a great question. I think the main motivator is there's two, maybe more, but two for sure, which is what your rate of return is. And they're either looking at what's their cash, if they're buying cash straight out, what's their cash return, or they're looking at a cash on cash return, basically if they're leveraging it with a mortgage, what kind of rate of return versus their amount of money they have to put up, or their down payment, if you will. Mm-hmm. So, right, rate of return on one. And two, then they're looking for the quality product on the renovation side. And then, whether that's number two and or number three, then the quality of management that maintains, runs, handles, and keeps their asset in good shape and the money coming in from that tenant.
So it seems like the turnkey investor, they really just want to trade money for cash flow, correct?
Yes, that's what I'd say. And then some people, depending upon what asset class you're looking at, they might be looking for appreciation, but typically the ones that we're looking at are more about the cash flow and not necessarily, appreciable asset, more what can it make, what is it making, and building the numbers off of that.
Gotcha. So how did you get started in the real estate industry? Because all of that seems for a newbie to tackle all that at one time may be a bit hard. Did you kind of take baby steps when starting?
Yes, absolutely. Although I did it the way that you probably should not do it. I overheard a guy chatting about being an investor and a contractor while sitting at a bar. And, 3 or 4 weeks later, I was quote unquote business partner with the guy. And the first day I bought a house, I bought two. Yeah.
Well, you bought two houses on the first day you invested?
Yeah. So the first day I bought a house, I bought two.
Now, how'd that work? I mean, how'd you go from 0 to 2? I mean, were you guys still in the bar when you signed the contract? How'd that work?
It was through a bank, an assumption of a mortgage. So there were a lot of bad things that, from a newbie standpoint, that I, looking back, just should not have done in that context. And I do not recommend people to go out and go buy two houses the first day. Don't do it.
So you got saddled with two houses. You're a brand new investor. You got two houses on your first deal. What in the world did you do the next morning when you woke up?
Oh, man. Well, it wasn't just what I did the next morning. It was what I did for the next like 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 months, which was have a partner who then was a complete liar and go on to buy 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 more houses in the next, period of time. I don't remember exactly. And then basically do everything that you could do that would be the wrong way to do it. And proceed to then hit the 2008, 2009 and literally lose everything.
Oh boy. So when 2008, 2009 economic depression hits, you've made a start that now you probably shouldn't have started. How fast did your education speed up during that time? And what'd you get from it that you are glad you got by going through the hard time?
Sure, absolutely. Well, it certainly did change my outlook and my approach to a lot of things. So first of all, it makes you appreciate when things go well. It also makes you really seek out wisdom from people who are doing it successfully and doing it repeatedly. And so out of that was really a burning desire to find a great mentor. And I've had a couple over the last, 4 or 5 years, and to work with the best people and do it right. So, I'm much more conservative on our cash flow. I'm much more conservative on how much we hold in reserves for our rental properties. I'm more conservative on our after repair values when we flip houses. Right. And the other thing that I became much better at was understanding how to use other people's money to structure great deals that make win-win scenarios for those investors and for me too.
And let's talk about that other people's money, that OPM. Robert Kiyosaki, the writer of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, has videos online talking about the number one skill of an entrepreneur is to be able to raise capital. Tell us about the experience of first raising that first amount, and how much was it?
Well, the first amount post-bankruptcy was about $15,000. I had to put 50% down, and I had been turned down like 27 times from different people trying to seek that capital out. So it came through somebody that I have now done, 6 or 8 transactions with over, many years, who I can, more or less make a phone call, give them the details of the deal, send a spreadsheet, and they'll fund deals for me now. And I'm a Robert Kiyosaki fan too, and I've, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So as far as generating other people's money, I think you have to be able to say, okay, well, where is your experience and why do you need the money? Ooh. And can you sell the vision that you're producing, and then can you back it up? And so that's where I've had to basically come back at full circle and say, okay, well, I need to do this myself, then I need to do it with a mentor, and then I need to do it again with a mentor, and then I need to find the partners who then believe in me, and now we're having some success, and then we can scale and leverage our business, and then we can bring in more partners, and now, we're at a place where we now have people calling us looking to invest money, which is obviously where you want to be.
Wow. So, that's an amazing story, because you hit the economic downturn, you had to file for bankruptcy, then you raised capital, started learning how to raise capital, and now people are calling you. I'm just curious, and you don't have to tell me, but how much money do you think people are trying to throw at you on a monthly basis?
It's a lot.
That's code for it's a whole lot. And I'll take that. I'll just take that answer. Okay. So.
Yeah. So I'll give an example. For instance, I'll get an email from somebody who says, we're looking to, buy X number of deals over the next 12 months. And we want to know if you have this kind of, property in your inventory. Or another example would be this week I got a phone call from someone who wanted to potentially buy a house a month for a buy and hold.
Wow. That's pretty cool. And I got to give it to you, because most people who weren't doing deals, if you ask them how much money, people were throwing at them, they'd say, oh man, millions and gazillions of dollars. But, you can tell the guys with the money, they just say, it's a lot. We're doing good, So congratulations on that.
I appreciate that.
So before we wrap up, Nathan, why don't you maybe give the listeners and all newbies or anybody who's wanting to invest in real estate, give them one thing that you learned in business that you wish you had known before you started.
I think it has to be a connection between your passion, your desire, and your drive. And if you don't want it bad enough, and you don't live and breathe and sleep that business, whether it's real estate or, starting a new company or, a lawn service or whatever it is. If you're passionate about it and you can put those things together, then people are going to believe you because you live and breathe it and desire and put those passions together. And I think for me, it was a matter of just saying, at some point I have to be all in or I'm not. And then number two, on top of those things, and I talk about it all the time, and it's in my life, it's changed my life, which is having a mentor that really has been there and done that and created what it is that you think about creating every day. And so, and I hear from people quite often who say, I really want a mentor, but, they want to take 70% of the deal. And I'm just like, dude, 30% of something in an education is worth everything. Right. And 0% of zero is nothing. And so how bad do you want it?
Gotcha. Great words of advice. In case you're just tuning in, you missed it. We've been talking to Nathan Brooks, real estate investor. He does deals all over the U.S. and the world. This year, doing 30 to 40 plus flipped houses. Nathan Brooks, why don't you give the listeners a way to at least find out more information about you in case they want to?
Absolutely. Well, you can find me on the web, Fix Flip Rent KC, just like it sounds, fixfliprentKC.com. I'm also on Facebook, Fix Flip Rent. I have some blog articles that I write for some different sources online, and I also have my email and contact on there if people wanted to connect.
Awesome. Nathan Brooks, thanks for taking your time out on Radio for Small Business.
Eugene, thank you for your time today, man. I appreciate it a lot.